Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Odyssey podcast, where me and my brother trek through cinema on the quest to find the best film ever made. This season, we count down the AFI Top 100. This episode, we are talking about Blade Runner. Randy, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
I liked the movie.
You like the movie?
Mm-hmm.
Just gonna open with that one?
Might as well get it out of the way. You know, my general consensus of the movie was that I liked it.
All
it was
right.
pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Although I was a little disappointed.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like it didn't quite live up to my expectations.
I remember last time we were talking, you really liked Blade Runner 2049, the sequel.
Yes.
And you really digged that movie.
Yes.
Were you expecting more of the same or something else? Or?
I was expecting a little, more of the same, but it wasn't quite close enough. You know, it was a little different. It was way more noir. And I usually like the noir aspects, but it was just so kind of spacey, this movie, where there's a lot of not much going on, of just Harrison Ford kind of walking around. It's it kind of, it builds this nice atmosphere and everything, but I feel like they kind of glossed over some stuff or just kind of moved through the movie without really going into detail about anything.
Really? I thought there was a lot of philosophy going on in the movie.
There was, but not to any deep degree. It's just kind of there for you to explore yourself,
It raised the question and was like, hey, think about this cool shit, guys.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Well, alright, I guess let's get started with the movie, Blade Runner. In the not-so-distant future, Rick Deckard, played by Harrison Ford.
In the not-so-distant past.
Actually, yeah. Dude, it was the not-so-distant future for 40 years. Now it's finally in the past.
It's not so distant past.
Yeah, and 3 years ago in 2019.
3 years ago.
Or what year is it?
It's 2 years ago.
God, I'm losing it. 2020 rotted my brain. 2 years ago, Rick Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, is on the trial of a group of renegade replicants. Anybody else remember that from 2019? The renegade replicants, tearing through Los Angeles?
No, don't let me get out the tinfoil hat.
All right. They're led by the charismatic leader, Roy Batty, played by Rutger Hauer, who is on a mission to meet his creator, Tyrell, to understand the meaning of his existence before his artificial lifespan runs out. And it's kind of a mystery noir.
Is he really seeking his own, the meaning of his existence?
Well, he's meeting his creator. He's meeting, his father, the being who brought him into the universe. And I was always under the assumption...
What's basically stated by him himself is that he's not so much looking as to his purpose, but as to a means to keep living. He's trying to extend his life. Maybe after he finds out that there's no way to extend his life, that's when it becomes a way to make the last hours, day of his life have meaning.
I was always looking at it to where he was finding a way to expand his lifespan, because his speech at the end, all these moments are lost,
Yes.
Which, great speech. Love that scene. I've always felt like the reason he wanted to extend his life was because he had experienced all these things. He had a life. He had memories that he wanted to share and explore what life is, kind of thing. I don't know. It felt to me like there's a lot more philosophical stuff going on with him in the film. Whereas, is it weird for me to say that Harrison Ford just exists in this movie? And he's not really, changing?
Yes, he does just kind of exist in this movie. Which kind of sucks, because everybody else around Harrison Ford in the movie is way more interesting than he is.
I wonder if that's on purpose, right? Rick Deckard is, the vanilla that we're exploring 21 flavors with.
Yeah, we're using all these toppings on the vanilla throughout the movie. We're, dressing all these things around him. But the movie's really not about him.
Right? It's about everything around him,
which I think is why I like 2049 a lot more than this, which I'm gonna just go out and say that I do like 2049 more than
as a personal opinion.
Yeah. Is because the main character is more central to the story. It's about him.
Yeah, I mean, I've read the book that this is based on, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and it's much different because it really does follow Deckard throughout the book. It doesn't, whereas the movie, it
follows him.
Yeah, well, no, I mean we follow exclusively Deckard in the book, which I guess is neither here nor there. They're basically the same story, just with way different emphasis on stuff. Granted, there are major changes. Like, his wife is actually a character in the book, whereas she's not in the movie.
Does he have a wife in the movie?
She divorced, I think, was something that happened in the voiceover.
The voiceover?
Oh, we should probably make a note. So we watched half of the theatrical cut and then had to finish with half of the final cut because apparently, so it's nigh impossible to find a theatrical cut of Blade Runner in any legal means. And I had a copy of it on one of those like Blade Runner like big collector's edition things that had a bunch of the different cuts. But that one decided to crap out on us halfway through, so we had to switch to the final cut so we can finish the movie.
Yeah, just about when Pris is waking up in JF Sebastian's like house is when it crapped out on us.
Yeah, so we got to watch about the first hour of the movie as the theatrical.
Hour and 13 minutes.
He remembers. We watched the first hour and 13 with the theatrical and the last half of the final cut.
Although it was pretty dank watching it with Harrison Ford's crappy voiceover.
Okay, that is a big gripe everyone has with this, is because the voiceover is trash, right?
It's so wooden.
Right?
It's more wooden than Harrison Ford's like acting in this movie, which is like a big ask. I'm kind of like, how did they get him to? Did he hate working on this movie?
Well,
was this like a design choice?
Here's the thing. So I need to explain to you what happened with this movie.
Okay.
Because this movie had a storied history. Being
storied production.
Very fucking storied. All right, so the book got released in '68. Martin Scorsese wanted to make this. In like the early 70s.
I see.
Couldn't get that shit to get made, so somebody else bought the film rights. They got a screenplay done, and then Philip K. Dick was like, "Nah, fuck it, it's not good enough." Then Philip K. Dick died. And then they were like, "We're gonna do another run," and then Ridley Scott's like, "I'll do the movie because fuck off, I don't want to do Dune anymore." By the way, he was doing Dune before this, and then he said screw it, so David Lynch got to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the guy who did 2049 is directing the new Dune. The more you know.
Okay.
Yeah. And once filming started, Scott basically was hounded by the producers every day to the point where as soon as principal photography finished, the day it was finished, the producers fired him. So Ridley Scott never got into an editing room. And then when they edited the movie together and got to see what it looked like, the producers were like, this makes no fucking sense. Hey, let's get Harrison Ford in for like a day of voiceover to like fluff this up. So all the voiceover is written by a bunch of producers, not screenwriters, basically to explain to people what's going on. And Harrison Ford was like, I
don't want to be here.
I don't want to be here at all. He's gone on record that he's like, yeah, the voiceover is basically my form of protest about, you pushed out Ridley Scott. Whatever. It didn't stop this movie from getting nominated for a shit ton of awards, though.
I guess that is true.
Yeah, it was nominated for 22 awards across 11 festivals and award shows.
I guess you really can tell that the voiceover was written by a bunch of producers, because like 20 minutes in the movie, Harrison Ford has to drop an N-bomb.
Yeah.
It was so funny because it was just so out of place.
Yeah.
It's not like there's even like much swearing or anything in this movie.
It's very almost clean.
Yeah.
In that way, where there's a little bit of violence going on.
Violence and nudity.
Yeah.
But, like, in terms of, like, language, like, not really.
Which is really weird.
It's really weird, and then out of nowhere, Harrison Ford has to drop an N-bomb when he's talking to the
police commissioner.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
And the way he said it just so blandly, like he hated where he was, like that he had to do all this. It's so good.
And it's fascinating because it's like, all in all, this is not a bad movie. And I feel like without the voiceover, it still makes total sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Although, like, sometimes the voiceover would come on and he would chip in about a couple of things. And I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That, kind of connects two things for me that I think would have taken a little bit longer in the story to connect.
The big one is the city speak one, where Edward James almost shows up and starts, talking in like that weird
gutter speak. Or whatever.
Yeah, gutter speak. And I've always, for the longest time, I was like, is he just speaking like Japanese? And wait a minute, there's some Spanish in there. What
is he supposed to be speaking?
Yeah, and I mean, when he says it in voiceover, it does
You're like,
illustrate the
okay,
point.
Yeah, he's speaking some like futuristic language or whatever.
Yeah, he's speaking the street talk, man.
Yeah, it's it's a kind of like a trope in like these futuristic movies and TV shows or whatever, where there's like a universal language.
And it's interesting. So, where do you want to get started talking about the actual like film or the content of the film, actor, story, themes? What you got?
Let's go with the actors, because I believe basically Rachel Sean Young, she was really good, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think she was really good in being able to like kind of portray like this robotic person that doesn't know they're a robot, because like all of her like moves and like the way she says things comes off as completely genuine, but you can tell they're like robotic.
It's kind of a thing. It's the uncanny valley effect.
Yes.
Everything she's saying is like, it sounds human, but it
Not
has a very
quite.
strange cadence to it that kind of breaks it up.
Like, you get that feeling that something's off, and it really comes off well to me.
Yeah, I really like Sean Young's performance in this. I'm also a huge fan of Rutger Hauer in this, playing Roy Batty.
Yeah.
Oh my god. That man needed an Oscar for this. He was fantastic.
You think so?
I really dug it. I don't know why. It might just be a thing where every time he's just like staring, he has this utter menace.
He has like a presence to him.
Yeah, he has this huge presence to him, and when he talks, it's like he's philosophizing about certain things.
Yes.
And even when he's asking Sebastian about this, hey, can you help us out? It's like, bro, I feel like he might just rip your head off. But then he makes a weird smiley voice with the googly eyes, and I'm very like off-put by this. He's so off-putting in this whole movie, and it's great.
It was really played well by him throughout the movie, because you felt like he's a bad guy. I mean, isn't his last name freaking Batty?
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, it's one of those things where you're just like, come on, guys.
It's fine.
But his like portrayal throughout the whole movie is that he's obviously the antagonist, but he's also got his own purpose.
Yeah.
He's not just the antagonist because the movie needs one. He's there for his own purpose. He's there with a goal in mind.
I don't even know if he's that much of an antagonist, because I understand he's killing people to reach his objective, but his objective is like, I was brought into this world as a slave. I have no memories. I am a tool, but I am sentient.
Yeah.
And I'm rebelling against this, and I'm trying to, instead of, I'm a slave and I'm forced to die, I want to live. I want to like be mortal, I guess, or being, human.
Yes.
And it's a very interesting thing and an interesting performance, and also I feel like the final speech is some of the greatest shit
good.
On cinema.
It's
just,
good.
Beautiful.
If we talk about Roy and his like character, why does he let Deckard live?
That's an interesting question that I've yet to figure out a good way to articulate.
I think he lets Deckard live because letting Deckard live is kind of like a way for his memory to pass on.
Oh.
You've never thought about it like that?
I've never thought about it like that, because that makes sense, because Deckard will tell his story.
Yeah, Deckard's the last person to know of Roy, basically. All of the other replicants that he was with are dead.
Yeah.
Tyrell dead.
Yeah.
Sebastian dead. Chew dead.
Yeah.
So Deckard's the last person to know Roy, and so Deckard's the only person to pass on Roy's story, to pass on the like memory of these replicants.
Is that the philosophical thing of like every man dies to death?
Yes.
The death of your mortal body, and then the
death of your memory.
The death of your memory. Yeah. When the last person thinks of you for the last time, that's when you truly die.
Yeah.
That's fascinating, because that actually makes a lot of sense, especially in the themes of the film.
Yeah, because Roy is all about his own mortality.
Yeah.
Throughout the movie, that's his main thing that he's trying to like prevent, and having Deckard live is a way to keep living even after he dies.
And it's interesting because Deckard is kind of the Grim Reaper figure, because he's coming for the replicants, which I say that with
I mean-
full knowledge that Deckard gets his ass handed to him by every replicant in the movie, but every time they come into contact with him, they die.
Well, except for the first replicant he kills. He doesn't really get his ass handed by her.
I mean, she does kind of just, like, start strangling him with his tie.
I'm sure Deckard could have gotten out of that situation. I mean, he still had his gun. Maybe he wouldn't have died to the first replicant. The other ones, though, kind of whipped his ass.
Yeah, I mean, who was it? Was it Leon that fucking almost chucked him through a truck?
Yes, Leon almost broke his head off if Rachel wasn't there to save him. And then against Pris could have easily killed Deckard. Just didn't.
Okay, Pris is another interesting character, right?
Yes.
Because Pris is played by Daryl Hannah, and I always felt like Pris was a character that existed in this movie just for, like, the trailers? I don't know.
You think so?
Okay, because she has a very interesting visual design.
Yes.
Right? Like, how the costume and makeup and all that stuff, the black eyeliner, the big blonde hair, very, like, she looks very interesting.
Very distinct, yes.
Very visually distinct. I'm like, oh, that's, like, an iconic kind of, like, look that
Yes.
we've seen, live on through, like, pop culture since then. But I don't really get what's going on, because Roy, I understand.
Yes, Roy is very much, he's concerned about his own mortality, about the ways to live on, going straight to his creators to talk to them about how he can continue living.
Yeah.
How he can, or even just, like, coming to terms with the fact that he can't live.
Exactly. And so Roy has this whole goal of, like, I want to live, I want to, all that stuff. And then we have Leon, whose whole thing is he's angry that he wants to die, and he's trying to, like, live a normal-ish life at the beginning, and then he's discovered. And then we have the first girl, who's the exotic dancer, who's literally just living a normal life.
Yes. She's the one that's integrated the best out of all of them. There's basically all four of them are kind of like phases of trying to integrate. Zora is, like, integrated. She's part of the society. She's found her place in this human world.
Yeah.
And then there's Leon, who's trying to, because he's basically trying to, like, create his own memories by, like, taking these photos of things. And he's, like, trying to, like, figure out the human way. And then there's, like, Pris, who, I'm not even sure, like, how she's trying to integrate, because we don't really see her in any way other than with, like, J.F. Sebastian. She's, like, basically walking around as, like, a hooker beforehand. But we don't know if that's, like, a ploy to get to Sebastian or what.
Yeah.
I think it's more of, like, Roy and Pris are, like, intertwined. They're both in the same group. So we have, like, Zora, who's integrated. We have Leon, who's semi-integrated, trying to, like, understand, like, the human way. And then we have Roy and Pris, who are more concerned. Pris is probably more concerned with Roy, and Roy is, like, above that. Roy is, like, concerned with the mortality of everything.
Okay, this is a weird, might be a tangent, but it gets me thinking. I wonder if that's an allegory for, like, immigration and integrating into, like, society. Because they come from, like, the space colony, they come to Earth, and Zora has completely integrated into human life.
Yes.
Leon, he's trying to, but he's still holding on to the semblances of the past, but he's making a concerted effort to just become part of the society. He just can't. And then Pris almost comes off as like, I've come here, but I don't understand anything. Her and Roy are completely pulled into that past of, like, being the replicant. Yeah, they're the outsiders. So with that, I guess, looking at Pris, I understand her role in the film more in a thematic level. It might be just a thing where it's like, I feel like she shows up in the movie for a bit, and then I'm like, I just want to go back to, like, Deckard and Rachel's thing going on, and want to see Roy going on, and things like that. I don't know.
You don't find her as interesting as the other replicants?
Not really. I get what her purpose, because she gets us to introduce Sebastian, like, way earlier, and I understand her purpose in the plot. I'm just, it could have been done a little bit more gracefully, I guess.
I do think she does serve a pretty good purpose, because she is not like she's like a subordinate to Roy, because like it makes her being there makes Roy's presence more, like, domineering because she's like obedient to Roy basically. Like it's not like they have any conflict. You know, it's like when Roy and like Leon are talking earlier where it's about the pictures, it seems like Roy's like angry at Leon for like screwing up.
He's angry at Leon. He's just like, why do you, trouble yourself with such human endeavors and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Not like that Machiavellian, but that's what it kind of comes off as. Roy's like, you're not one of them. You're one of us. Why do you want to be one of them?
Yes.
It's very interesting. I like how we just kind of just slid into like a whole like thematic conversation about this movie.
Well, yeah, it's pretty important. It's where I think most of the meat of this movie comes from.
The themes.
The themes, yeah. The themes and just kind of like thinking over the movie. Because the movie as is, actually, I don't think it's that great.
Really?
Yeah, the movie as is, if you don't think about the themes and like really like dive into what's going on, it's not that great.
Really? Okay. I'd have to disagree with you because I feel the cinematography, that heavy noir style, the smoke, all that stuff, the production design, I feel like visually it's a very good
Visually,
film.
it's pretty sweet, yeah.
Visually, super
Although there's
sweet.
some parts where I feel like it's almost too dark, where they're obscuring like too much from the viewer's vision, where you're just kind of like, what the hell am I looking at?
Oh, really?
Yeah, mostly in Deckard's like apartment.
I
You're
gotcha.
just kind of like, what the fuck am I looking at?
You're just like, why is it so dark in here?
I'm just like, what am I looking? Is that a pizza box in the background, or is that like a giant? What the hell is that? Like, you look at it and it's like those computer generated images where you can't name anything in the image.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just
I kind of get what you mean. There's a few points in this where I'm like, okay, when somebody color corrected this, they might have ticked the contrast a little too high. But I think overall, visually, this movie is stunning.
Oh, yeah, it's great. I love the look of this movie. You know, at the very beginning where Deckard's kind of like at the like Chinese food stand, and there's like the neon and the pouring rain and everything. I'm just like, this is what this future noir movie is about. Like, this look, I love it.
Randy loves that like
cyberpunk kind of like future but
noir by neon.
Yes. Oh, I love that stuff.
See, like, oh man, I can't wait because I mean it's not on the AFI, but you really need to watch Drive. I think you would dig it.
I mean, I've been wanting to watch it for so long. I love Night Call, the song from Drive.
Oh yeah.
I love that song. I love that like whole like feel.
And it also has your boy Ryan Gosling in it. He was in Blade Runner 2049.
I love Ryan Gosling.
Many do. But it's just a really, like, I feel visually it's a stunning movie. I feel like the performances are really good. Like okay, Harrison Ford is the weakest performance, but he's not bad.
Are you sure he's not bad?
I don't think he's bad.
So wouldn't. I mean, just take the part in which like he confronts Rachel in his apartment where he like slams the door on her and kisses her.
And he's like I guess trigger warning, is that a rape or a seduction?
I'm thinking like seduction, but in that old noir, like very masculine.
It's the like, yeah, we're a bunch of old war vets and this is what we think romance is.
Yeah, kinda. Basically. Where it just comes off so weird because like he conveys no emotion. And you're just like, what the fuck is going on?
So, okay, I feel that's almost a product of how the world is supposed to be interpreted, okay? Because Pris is like a pleasure bot, right?
Yes.
And replicants have been established in this world are basically tools.
Yes.
They're things. They're not people.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's like a thing where Deckard's like, you're not a person, you're just an object. And that's like another level here.
Shit.
And it's like that's like how he's interacting and he's conscious that she's a replicant, and this is like his default of how to interact with a replicant in this kind of situation, which is very problematic in 2021.
But the thing is that like I don't think it's that like problematic or whatever. But like the thing is he humanizes her more later.
Yeah.
Well, like when he at the very end of the movie when it like comes to pick her up to like I guess they're like run away together.
Mm-hmm.
He treats her very like humanly.
Yeah.
And so it's like
I wonder if that's because he interacted with Roy and he sees that these things can have souls. Which, actually, that's another question. Do replicants have souls?
No.
No?
No.
No? You don't think Roy at the end, when he reflects and he's like, saves Deckard and he's like, I want to be remembered. I want things. He has desire. He's not an object. Do you think having desire and memory...
Here's the thing, though, is that he only saves Deckard in a selfish manner. He didn't do anything out of compassion during the whole movie.
But Pris does bring up the whole, the philosophical argument, I think, therefore I am.
Mm-hmm.
And even when Sebastian requests them to do something, they're like, we're not computers. Yes. We're people. Or, well, I guess they don't say... did they say people? I think they call themselves people.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was one interaction. But I feel they're arguing that Roy and Pris are arguing that we are sentient beings, we have souls, we're people. We were just created.
If it would go so far as having souls, because that's a whole nother can of worms.
I feel that's a subject that comes up.
Do you want to add another hour onto this recording? Because we can right now.
Look, I guess I should tell people, you're a huge philosophy, theology, nerd.
Well, not huge, but I do find it very interesting, and I'd read up and watch lectures and stuff.
So, I mean, okay, you're gonna have an unbroken philosophy section right now, Randy.
God. I'm not well versed enough to do this.
I understand, but neither am I. So, the argument for what constitutes a soul in general philosophy, does it qualify for this movie? For Roy and the Replicants?
I would say in my own personal beliefs, no, because they were artificially created. They were not created with a mother's love type of thing. They don't have this kind of symbiotic relationship with a creator. Because the thing is that Roy hates his creator. Mm-hmm. He doesn't like Tyrell. He thinks Tyrell made him almost spitefully.
Made him to die.
Yes.
I feel that's the thing that man feels of God or the gods, where it's, you created me on this thing to experience, to love, and only to have me die. I'll experience all these things and I'll just still fall.
But that's usually where the afterlife comes in and all these theological interpretations, is you're not just here to die, you're here to be reborn.
Okay.
Either in actual reincarnation or, reborn in heaven.
I wonder if that's a thing where, going on to the deeper meaning, I wonder if that's something Roy's seeking. Because I think he wants to have a soul.
Was he reborn by saving Deckard?
I mean, we see the dove fly away at the end that he's holding, and doves are symbol.
Why is he holding the dove, by the way?
I feel for the visual. Money's on for the visual.
How did they justify that? It makes no sense. Where did he get the dove?
Okay, the last section.
Holding it.
The last section of this movie when they're fighting in the Bradbury.
Cool.
It's cool as fuck. Oh my god, visually it's awesome when fucking Rutger Hauer's punching his head through walls and just talking mad shit on Deckard. It's glorious. But it's edited like garbage.
You think so?
It's cut together very confusingly, and it's...
I didn't think it was that confusing. It's just... The only thing that's confusing is when he shows up with the dove. Oh, no, actually, there's another confusing part where he's, by Pris's body, and you're not sure if that's happening before or after he's encountered Deckard.
Yeah, you're not sure if it's before or after, and then when you cut back and it's, the same shot composition, but it's now taking place after Deckard shot him.
Yes.
Or shot at him, and it's I could tell that there were probably this was cut together or planned in a very particular way, and but then it was not filmed that way, and that's probably why there's some jarring things. If I had to put hard money, the dove is there because Ridley Scott wanted a visual at the end of this movie of the dove flying away, and yes. I think that's on purpose, because I feel the dove is that symbol of rebirth, peace, love, and afterlife, right?
Of him reaching peace with himself. Because I'm pretty sure that when he arrives, he intends to not kill Deckard. Or do you think during his encounter with Deckard, he decides not to kill him? Because he gets Deckard's gun, he could have easily shot him. Or was that the whole thing about his sportsmanship or whatever?
It's a very complicated thing, because I wonder if that's also why Pris didn't kill Deckard. I wonder if Roy, after killing Tyrell, was have the realization that I will not live past this day, neither will Pris. And we need somebody, something to carry on our anything. Even a memory of us still proves we existed. We are something. We are something worth life, worth remembrance. And that
also,
might have been why...
he probably kills Tyrell and Sebastian and Chew so that other replicants won't have to go through what he did. Because he believes if he kills them, like, replicants will stop being produced, right?
I wonder if that's his compassion.
His compassion to other replicants and not to humans? His
compassion's for those where he's... Okay, this is another interesting thing. Because these replicants are sentient beings, right? Yeah. But I feel some of them are more sentient than others.
Like Roy.
Like, Roy is very sentient. He's philosophical. Yeah. He has a full grasp of, like, the purposes of his life and, like, the implications of his being. Whereas, like, Leon, more or less, is almost, like... He's on a different level of sentience, where he's almost on, like, a basic thing of, like, survival, establish some form of, like, memory, and just continue. That's his level of sentience.
Well, I mean, they kind of explained that at the beginning of the movie, where they go over how Roy's probably the leader of them. Roy was built to be more intelligent and more sentient than the others.
I wonder what's the implication... Okay, because this is another thing about, like, artificial intelligence.
Sure.
The implication of... Does man have the right to create sentient life?
We do it all the time.
I mean, like, from fucking computers.
Oh.
Like, not like clones and shit, alright?
Well,
or, like, people. Or, like, babies and shit.
Babies, there you
go. I mean, like, do we have the right to, like, play God and just, like, basically build an android that is human in most every way and is completely sentient?
It's like when Deckard encounters Rachel for the first time, where he couldn't tell for a very long time whether or not she was actually a replicant.
Yeah, and I feel Tyrell doing that is almost like a proof of concept of, like, humanity is obsolete because we can make these things that are stronger, faster, better than us. They just have a limited lifespan. Once we solve that equation, then these are the next step of evolution.
I'm not sure if he's, like, next step of evolution, but he's maybe toying with the idea of what it means to be human. If you can't tell a human from a replicant, what does humanity mean?
I wonder what happens when we reach the stage where you can't tell a human from a computer. What is a human? What is a soul?
Dude, if you can't tell a replicant from a human, is the only difference a soul? Is there even a difference of a soul?
Is there even a soul to be different? See, and that is why I think this movie is so good. Because there's all this shit in there.
But I feel like this is not only, but this is one of the only reasons why this movie is good. Is because it's all of these underlying things about the movie, which are basically just propped up by the fact that Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is an amazing book.
It's very good. Very good.
It's kind of like a crutch for this movie.
See, I want to know what...
God damn it, Harrison Ford.
Are you literally like, if they got anyone else other than Harrison Ford, you've been totally fine?
It's not even that, like, it's not even Harrison Ford. It's like he could, like, why is he this way? Who told Harrison Ford to, like, sleep on a bed of nails before he went to fucking work?
I feel Harrison Ford is always grumpy like that. Like, let's be honest.
But... I'm just gonna sigh.
I got it.
It's just so disappointing, you know, because it's like at the end or whatever, where it's Roy and it's Roy and Deckard on the rooftop, and Roy gives that, like, last, like, beautiful little, like, speech or whatever. You know, I saw, like, the assault ships. I saw
battleships on fire off the shoulder of Orion.
Yeah, like that stuff. Like, you know, Tears in the Rain is so good.
All these moments will be lost. Like tears in the rain.
So good. It's so amazingly good. And then it pans back to Deckard, and he just looks at Roy. He no emotion, just looks at him, being like, "Oh, I'm glad he didn't kill me."
Rain. That's
just like, God damn it.
And also the thing about that speech, it sums up everybody's, like, fear of death and humanity and, like, soul. It's like, these are the reasons I want to live on. All the things I experience, I don't want to be in vain.
You know what? It makes me feel for Roy more than Deckard, because I feel for Roy being like, I'm so sorry you had to pass on your life, your memory, you know, everything about you through Deckard to live on. Like, I'm so sorry that he's the only person left. Like,
Randy's about to tear up over here. He's feeling this one.
I'm just like, oh god, dude, like...
Look, I like it. I think he does a good job. I think Harrison Ford does a good job. I might just be a thing that he was given a particular direction to go.
I was about to bring that up. In the movie, they do kind of explain that Harrison Ford works this job because he doesn't feel for them. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just like Harrison Ford's, like the character itself, like not Harrison Ford, but the character of Deckard is supposed to be this very wooden guy because that allows him to do his job.
Oh, here's a fan theory.
They do kind of like say that in the movie, that he doesn't feel for them. That's why he's so good at his job.
Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of fan theories, and I'd be remiss not to bring it up, sure, is that Deckard's a replicant. Oh. And that might be a thing because, so, they've asked everybody who's ever worked on this movie, is Deckard a replicant? Harrison Ford is like, nah, he's a human. I obviously play him like a human being. And Ridley Scott is like, of course he's a fucking replicant. You see how wooden he is? Ridley Scott, the director, is like, of course he's a replicant. It means so much more because he's the replicant who doesn't know. And, like, that could imply, it's like, oh, why he has all these pictures when he's in the voiceover, and he's like, oh, my wife who divorced me. We never see her. It's just implied that he's been divorced. That could be an artificial memory.
He's got all the pictures in his room and everything. Yeah. Just like Leon.
Exactly. And there's the other thing where the, I forget Everjane Olmos' character. Is it Gaff? Gaff. So, I feel that Deckard has Gaff's memories. And that's why Gaff is, like, following him in at the end when he's like, it's sad she won't live, but then again, who does? And he's like, I feel like he's talking to Deckard. About Deckard, yeah. He's like, I'm sad that you're not going to live a life, but, you know, who really does.
It makes so much more sense if he is a replicant, but I feel like there's just not enough in the movie to make it, like...
Here, this is one of those things where this only works because I'm a fucking OCD memory nerd. Go. So... You know how in the movie when we see, like, Rachel and the other replicants, how their eyes have that weird red dot flash thing going on? There's a moment where Rachel, I think it's, like, right after the talking or something like that, where Deckard, like, steps out and he's just a little bit out of focus, and he turns and he says a line to her, and you can see his eyes have that same red thing with Rachel in there. But he's just a little bit in the back and it's a little out of focus, but you can tell his eyes have the same glow. So I see that and I'm like, I wonder if that's the thing.
That's supposed to be the tell?
That's the tell. It's super subtle, and obviously it's probably a thing where if Ridley Scott had full control from the beginning and into the editing room, it'd probably be a little bit more apparent, but I don't know. But I feel that might explain why his performance is so wooden and stilted. And that might also explain why the romance is weird.
When he meets her.
Yeah.
Kind of wooden and stilted.
And I wonder if that explains why the romance thing happens. It's so strange because it's just
two replicants.
It's two replicants trying to mimic probably the most baseline human, like, interaction. Because, like, let's be honest here, like, the earliest human interaction was boinking. Mm-hmm. And it's two things that aren't human trying to facilitate that urge and basic human thing. And that's probably why it's so weird.
Probably why Gaff is so hot on Deckard's heels is because he thinks Deckard's going to find out he's a replicant.
Oh, and then if he figures that out, then Gaff's probably like, I have to put him down. Mm-hmm. And that also seems very interesting. I feel that's a very interesting implication of the film.
If he is a replicant.
If he is a replicant.
Yeah, it kind of makes everything make a little bit more sense. Mm-hmm. If he's a replicant, you know, there's all these underlying things that kind of bubble up to the surface. If you're like, okay, well, Harrison Ford is playing a replicant. And it's like, Well, that's why Gaff's so hot on his trail all the time. That's why he has all these photos in his apartment and the music and everything, because it's supposed to, like, resemble, like, a past he doesn't actually have. You know, that's why he's so wooden all the time. That's why his interaction with Rachel is so weird. That's why Tyrell takes this particular instance in Harrison Ford when he first shows up, and why Rachel asks him if he's ever taken the test himself.
Exactly. And there's the other point where I wonder if that's why Roy saves him at the end. That's Roy realizes is like...
Because Roy knows he's a replicant?
Yeah. I wonder if at that point he's just like...
The thing is that he doesn't portray the same type of physical feats as the other replicants, or is that more to make him more human?
I wonder... Okay.
Or is that like a specific thing? Maybe, you know, so if he is a replicant, he's got to be made by Tyrell, right?
Yeah.
So Tyrell made Harrison Ford, or
Deckard
to be more human. So he didn't give him the super strength or the agility and whatnot of the other replicants, nor the super intelligence.
Maybe he might have left him with, like, the same durability. That might explain why he can get his ass kicked so hard by these guys and still walk around, because they're implied to be, like, almost superhumanly strong.
Well, yeah.
And Deckard can take a pretty decent beating.
The thing is that he doesn't take as big of a beating as the other replicants do.
It's true. Well, I just thought that was a very interesting, like, fan theorization, because I feel it adds another layer to the film, which is just fantastic. But yeah,
it does.
I'm going on record that Harrison Ford was a good actor in this movie. God damn it!
Also,
not great shakes, but good enough.
It is way better if he was a replicant. But if Harrison Ford didn't know he's a replicant and he gave the same performance, garbage.
Fine.
Garbage. Also, I now realize how many things actually refer to Blade Runner.
Oh, really?
Do you know Detroit Become Human?
Yes.
The main character you play as, Holden, who is a replicant hunting replicants.
Yeah.
He's Holden, a replicant hunting replicants, and there's Holden, the guy. You remember now?
Oh,
who I'm talking about in the movie, named Holden.
Yeah, he's like the first guy that dies in the movie, right?
Yes, it's the person that Deckard replaces.
Oh shit!
You like that reference?
I like that. That's a good reference.
Also, the gun that Deckard uses is that gun from the Fallout series,
which is wonderful, by the way. I love Fallout New Vegas, and that gun is great.
That gun.
Also, this movie has probably permeated so much, like, pop culture. It's ridiculous at this point. Like, how many cyberpunk games are just ripping Blade Runner set design?
Oh, it's so good, though. I love everything about Blade Runner set design.
Randy's like, look, it's like, can't we just, like, get the actors out so I can just watch The Room real quick?
Bro, you don't know how many, like, little pixel art things there are of, like, just the Blade Runner setting.
Honestly, it's probably ridiculous, right?
Yes, like, the Blade Runner setting is one of the best settings I know of, because it portrays everything all at once without overwhelming you. And it's so descriptive without saying anything.
We understand that it's not a dystopia, right? It's just, this is kind of like humanity if it just kept on trucking through all the shit.
Yeah, it's like a semi-dystopia.
Yeah.
Once you introduce, like, the replicants and all that stuff. Where basically what happened is that the government was trying to replace humans and then realized it couldn't.
Yeah. I've wondered that. It's like, why did they make the replicants sentient?
Make them better workers.
Giving the worker illusion of choice. That makes them better workers.
If they can reason for themselves, they can reason how to work better, faster, what have you.
Interesting. Okay. We've been on the thematic section for a long time. Do you have any other?
What else is there to talk about?
I mean,
look, we talked about the actors. We talked about the themes.
We talked about the set design.
The set design, which is amazing, by the way.
Would you recommend this movie just for the setting, just for the set design, just for, like, the visuals? I guess that's a question. Would you recommend this movie?
Yeah, I'd recommend this movie.
100%.
I definitely would recommend this movie. Although I'll say, like, it's not as good as it's hyped up to be, but if you just think about what's happening in the movie, it becomes 10 times better.
It's really a movie that it's like after you're done, you should get a glass of scotch in the study and just like ponder it.
Yeah, and just think about what's happening in the movie and like the themes and the implications of the different actions of the characters. Maybe watch it over again and just kind of like after something happens, you pause the movie and you think about it.
It really feels like this is a movie that scene by scene, there's so much meaning behind what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because it's all wrapped up in this like neo-noir cyberpunk movie.
Do you think this has the most meaning scene by scene of the movies we've watched so far?
Ooh, okay.
Where you could glean more from each scene. Like, each scene is, like, denser. There's more to it.
There's more bite. There's more chew.
Than the other movies we've watched so far.
Okay, because we've gone through Ben-Hur, Toy Story, Yankee Doodle Dandy, and this is our fourth movie.
It's the fourth movie.
So there's more chew than Yankee Doodle Dandy.
100%.
100%. Probably more... I don't know if it's more than Toy Story. Probably more than Toy Story.
I would say more than Toy Story.
I feel like a lot of Toy Story is going on with the implications within its own world, but not like philosophical, deep-seated questions about...
There are some deep-seated questions in Toy Story, but I think that there's not too many that are brought up.
It's one of those things, it's one or two big ones.
Yeah, one or two big questions.
And this is like, no, we're gonna just... The fuck is humanity? And that's the theme going on here. That's what's being explored in Blade Runner.
So many little branches off of it.
Yeah, and then Ben-Hur, which is just... Honestly, it's one of those things where I feel Blade Runner has more than Ben-Hur, but I feel Ben-Hur might have a lot going on because it's just a longer movie. That there's probably more things being discussed at length, but I feel Blade Runner probably has the most like actual bite to it.
I think so. I think Blade Runner has the most, probably very closely run up by Ben-Hur.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot underneath the skin of this movie, which I think is why I'm initially kind of like, I don't know about this movie, because everything's under the skin. All the good things about this movie are like kind of
as soon as you take one step
below the surface of it.
As soon as you take one step below the surface, this movie gets insanely good, masterpiece levels. But on the surface, it's like, this is just like a really good like sci-fi action movie. Yeah. Sci-fi noir movie. It's just a really good sci-fi noir movie. But I think that's a great thing about movies that work in genre is...
Do you think that works to the movie's benefit or its detriment? That the surface level isn't quite there, but the stuff beneath the surface level, the quote-unquote like iceberg of the movie is quite large.
Oh, I think it works in his benefit. I feel on the surface, it's still a really good movie. I feel this is still a really enjoyable, just like popcorn flick at the end of the day, and everything underneath it is just fantastic. It's almost like
popcorn flick. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, well, think about it. On the surface, there's a little bit of action, mystery, there's some romance, the weird, and it's like really visually interesting, and there's a lot... It's just really interesting to just watch this movie, because the visuals are fantastic, and it really digs you along, and then you take like one step underneath the surface, and you're like, oh, this movie means so much more. And then you keep digging down the iceberg, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's really good.
You know what? Describing it as a surface level popcorn flick with a whole bunch underneath kind of gives me like a whole new perspective on it, a whole new like way to look at it, and I think actually it might be genius. It might like...
This might actually be a masterpiece, Randy.
It might be a masterpiece in that it is kind of on the surface this popcorn flick, just put it on and watch it type of thing, with a whole nother level underneath.
It's a thing where on the surface it's like, oh, this is like, oh, it's a cool like, action movie. And then underneath it's like, oh no, it's a philosophy textbook. Actually, it's a philosophy library. Actually, here's like 15 philosophers from Greek mythology that are just going to talk to you for like 20 minutes. Don't worry about it. It gets so much deeper the more you dig into it. And this gets to the part, all right, the AFI comparison thing going on. Because we did talk about it in comparison to everything else. But
sure.
This movie, it only came on the 2007 list. Did not show up on the 98 list. Didn't exist. And it came in at number 97. But a year later, in 2008, the AFI did a top 10 sci-fi films of all time. This came in at number 6. So, do you think this film is going to go up the ladder or go down, get pulled off? Where do you think it's going to go?
I think the rating is right where it needs to be.
At 97?
it just like kind of like this range, the 90 to 100 mark, because it lacks that little bit of surface level going on, is why it's not going to move up on the list. Because it's not as engaging on a surface level as you would want it to be, to where it's almost more art house type of, like, you need to think about what you're seeing type of thing.
It's one of those movies where you're like, there's a vision going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Where the other movies we watch where it's like Yankee Doodle Dandy is probably a good example where it's like, I don't know how much of a vision was there. It's an impressive, it's an impressive movie.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. I like it.
Yeah, and Toy Story, I'm like, okay, this is something where they're trying to sell, CG animation as like a technical marvel, technical feat.
Yeah.
And then the story just is also like a fantastic story. And then, Ben-Hur, which is just spectacle personified. But Blade Runner really does feel like we're just gonna talk some fucking philosophy, and I really like noir, so we're gonna do it as a noir and talk a bunch of philosophy.
I mean, is there a better medium to talk philosophy than a noir? Would an epic be better?
God, no.
No?
There's not... You can't get enough smoking and Venetian blind effects.
An epic?
You
Why
can't.
not an epic noir? Could you imagine?
Could you imagine Charlton Heston in a 3.5-hour noir in a tunic?
In a tunic?
Well, of course, because he has to ride a chariot at the end, obviously.
Lord.
I mean, if you want to see Charlton Heston in a noir, it's called Touch of Evil. It's directed by Orson Welles. It's fantastic.
It's not on the list, is it?
It's not on the list.
God.
Don't worry. We'll get to it. Next season. But, yeah, so you're the opinion that this movie is probably just going to stay in the 90s if the new list ever comes out?
80s, 90s, somewhere in there. Because while it is, kind of like this genius masterpiece underneath the surface, it's not a genius masterpiece through and through.
I also feel it's heavily influenced by things that have come before it. It's heavily influenced by the noir genre, easily.
Well, yeah.
And I don't
think that's a real detriment.
It's not a detriment, but I feel a lot of the originality things going on here in terms of like the themes, but the visual aesthetic of the noir, I feel we've seen that a bunch of times. The sci-fi aesthetic, I feel that's something that I don't know how unique it is to this movie. I feel it's probably, become more and more like just permeated culture. Like, how many animes have you watched that just look like Blade Runner?
That's true. But they've mostly come out after Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I mean, when did, Judge Dredd come out?
I mean,
Was it after this movie?
Actually, might have been.
And it's not, Judge Dredd doesn't share that much with Blade Runner, aesthetically, other than this, dystopian future look. And so, and these other movies that have, this dystopian future looks to them probably came out after Blade Runner.
I mean, I know Akira came out after Blade Runner, and it just looks like Blade Runner.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know.
I think Blade Runner was more influential than you're giving it credit for. I think it's more influential than influenced.
Maybe. I feel it's just
is that a metric we can go off of? More influential than influenced?
That might be, because I feel like if we're doing that, then Yankee Doodle Dandy might be one of the most influential films we've talked about so far.
You think so?
It's the first English language musical biopic.
Yeah.
It's the first one.
Yeah.
How many of those have we seen in the last 20 years?
A lot.
Yeah. There's one there's 5 every year. Even the ones you don't know about. It's a whole genre.
I guess all the ones you don't know about.
Even the ones you don't know about. It's the whole genre. And it's also a thing where that Yankee Doodle Dandy is also basically personified and cemented the song Yankee Doodle Dandy and, Over There and all these other in the Grand Old Flag for in the entirety of U.S. existence.
Yes.
And, if we're going by influential versus influenced, Blade Runner might actually be even higher than Yankee Doodle Dandy, possibly.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly.
I think it's kind of like this whole idea because it was basically an adaptation of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Yeah.
And that that book is such a big cornerstone of sci-fi.
Honestly, I don't think people appreciate how linchpin that book actually is. It came out in 1968, and it's a really good sci-fi novel. I really like that book.
And
it gets as philosophical as the movie to a point.
Because I'm pretty sure that book is where the majority of the like questions we have about AI versus people come from. I'm pretty sure 90% of them come from that book.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm pretty sure.
And like that whole discussion is a very like deep and real discussion. Especially as time goes on, it becomes more relevant.
At first, it was like, oh, this is an interesting philosophical question. And then it became, well, it's an interesting, like, tech question for the far future. And now it's like, look, we really need to figure out the answer to this in, like, the next 10 years, because it's happening.
No, it's not happening, all right? We're not going to have replicants.
It's happening.
It's happening. We're not going to have replicants in the next 10 years or anything, but we're going to have AI that's going to try and be more human. I mean, if you've ever seen online, there's like bots you can talk to that try and replicate human behavior.
How freaky is that? Because those are like learning AI, right?
Yeah,
like if you enough inputs and it'll just turn in and it'll mimic human thought.
But the thing is that we don't really have to worry about those as of yet, because most of the times when a bot... I'm putting my like hand up over my forehead here, being like, most of the time those bots come online and within like a couple hours we start saying some racist shit because people are feeding it bullcrap.
yeah. 4chan has some issues with artificial intelligence. Okay, so I guess the final thoughts here about Blade Runner.
Visually stunning, acted well by everybody that wasn't the main character.
God.
Deep philosophical questions and sometimes arguments, and a great speech at the end. Where'd the dove come from? And Deckard's probably a replicant.
I really liked the movie. I thought I thought Harrison Ford did a great job. I thought he was perfect in this role.
Why troll me?
I'm not even trolling. I legitimately think Harrison Ford did a good job in the role he was given. It might have...
As a replicant?
As a replicant, all right.
Caveat
as a replicant.
If he was given, if he was giving, like, acting direction to play a freaking replicant without anybody's telling him that he's playing a replicant, then
Ridley Scott might have done that.
Then it's good, you know? Then I think that his acting portrayal of the character is just fine, if that is the direction in which we're going, but... As is, I don't know. Just...
I would say this
Come
is
on now.
okay. I'll say this is in the realm of being a flawed masterpiece. It's a masterpiece, but there's something missing that's keeping it from being like. Again, there's a reason why it's in the 90s and not in the top 10, and I feel that's the missing thing we can't pinpoint.
Here's the thing: the movie is an iceberg and not a circle, because the movie is like not great in some places, you know, smaller in some places at the top of the iceberg, and like very robust and big below the surface.
Okay.
It's not a perfect circle. Not everything here is great.
I understand.
You understand it now?
Now I get you. You would argue Ben-Hur is a perfect circle?
Closer. Maybe an oval.
Maybe an oval?
Maybe an oval. It's closer.
Toy Story is a perfect... Have you seen a perfect circle movie yet?
Can I give a meme answer?
Oh my god. You're going to.
9.
9?
Yeah, with the little burlap sack people.
Oh god.
I love that movie.
All right.
Well, 2049.
You would say 2049 is a perfect circle.
Closer than this movie, because it gives you more of that surface level stuff going on in the movie while having a lot of the same underlying themes.
You should really rewatch 2049.
I know I'm gonna love it if I rewatch it, because I love that ending scene where they fight in the like the water next to the car.
Oh, that
scene's so fucking good.
So good. Are you okay? Now the real question: Are you gonna go see Dune, Denis Villeneuve's new movie?
You're gonna take me to see it, aren't you?
Yeah, probably.
Well, then, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's how this works.
Yeah, I mean, of course I'm gonna see it if you're gonna take me to see it. I really want to see it.
All right.
Although I probably should watch David Lynch Dune beforehand. Do you think so? No.
It's gonna be great. All right, David Lynch Dune is another level of absolute insanity. But for everyone out there, I would like to thank you for joining us on the Film Odyssey podcast. And next week, it's going to get interesting. Because next week, we're going to be watching a Spike Lee joint, Do the Right Thing. Which, I don't know. Do you know anything about this movie?
Not really, no.
Nothing at all? No preconceived notions, no thought?
I know it's a Spike Lee joint about, like, probably about racism in America or something like that, because it's most Spike Lee joints.
you get basically. But no, like Do the Right Thing is actually like a really good movie.
I've heard it's really good.
Yeah, and I'm very excited. But if you wanted to catch that next week, you can find us anywhere you can listen to podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Radio Public, so on and so forth. Anchor FM. You can also find us on our YouTube channel, In the Frame, where you can find the Film Odyssey podcast, the other podcasts we do, the Film Club podcast, and the Double Feature podcast. And Randy, do you have anything you'd like to say before we sign off?
I do recommend the movie.
I would recommend this movie too, but I might forget it, like Tears in the Rain.
Cringe.
Fuck you too. All right, everybody, you guys have a good night.
Yeah.